Today's going to be a little different because we're going to have a hard stop a few minutes before 9 so we can head into the bold room. And I just reviewed my notes for what order I had all the systems in this morning, and I realized that this is probably one that I need to certainly share a screen for. So I want to talk about the database and the pipeline systems today. And what I'll do is I'll kind of give you some of the theory behind it and point you in the direction of some references or some resources, I'm sorry. And then I will do some voice recordings through WhatsApp a little later to summarize things. So good morning. How is everyone today? Or we could just scrap all that and reward the 3 of you or 4 of you that are here, and we can talk about anything you want.
No, I want to talk about the systems. I think that'd be good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so a couple things. Let's start off with kind of the idea of just a quick summary of the role of the database and the role of the pipeline. Let's just talk about it from like a 30,000 foot view. So first of all, your database is your business. That's really all it is. So what happens is, let's say you go into, like, have you gone into the dentist lately, or like the eye doctor lately, or something like that, where when you're on your way to like the room or whatever, they have that long wall on the side of their long wall on the side of their building, and it's got all those colorful folders and all that kind of stuff. That's their database, right? And when Ryan Kennedy shows up, every 6 months to get her teeth cleaned, they go to the little colorful folder that's got the K on it, and they pull it out, and they got all the details about Ryan, right? How frequently she comes, what she talks about, all that kind of stuff, so they can have conversations, right? So if somebody were to say, "Oh, Ryan, how's your daughter?" Like, they know. Actually, I don't know if you have a daughter or not. Do you have a daughter? Okay, Ryan, how's your daughter? Right? And if they don't do this, by the way, they definitely should. But this is what a database is, right? They, at any time that they interact with somebody that they're in relationship, they've got all the data that's necessary to make that experience awesome, right? And unique to that one person. And so we want to basically collect data as much as we can, right? Did you guys see, or last week on Gene Rivers' event, that's basically all he talked about was data, right? And that's not a coincidence. He's an incredibly intelligent man. The future of our world will be driven with data, right? It will be insights into, let's say, I'll pick on somebody else. Let's say Melissa. When Melissa goes online and she takes her cell phone, with her all day, and she walks in and out of, restaurants and stores and school and all these things, they know everything. They know wherever she is. And they know what ads to put on your phone at what time based on where the phone is. They know that if you buy this particular book today, you're likely to buy that book next time you log onto the site. That's where the data is coming from. Those insights is in the benefit of the owner of that data. So we collect all that data and we tag it in a way that, by the way, I made some recommendations on the video that I posted yesterday or 2 days ago. On ways to tag your data or tag your database, and basically you use that information to your benefit. And as you're having those conversations, you might rank them or put them in the pipeline or something like that indicates that they are a hotter prospect, or that they need more attention, or different attention, or more intense attention, or more frequent attention, that kind of stuff. Make sense? That's essentially what the pipeline is. We collect all that information and we say to ourselves, hey, since we're in the business to have fun, don't we want to kind of spend our days with people that we enjoy spending time with? Right? So if you've got a handful of people in your cell phone or on your LinkedIn or on your Facebook or Instagram or something, and you don't particularly like how you feel when you're done hanging out with them, then don't put them in your database. Right? So if somebody is not the type of person that you want to hang out with or do business with, don't add them. So your job is to go add people to the database. Guys, there's like, what is there, like 8 million people in the city of Atlanta right now or something, including all the, outside of the city limits. Guys, you only need a database of a couple hundred people to absolutely annihilate this business. You just got to go meet a few people, right? Put them in the database and find out what they want and give it to them, and give it to them when they want it, how they want it, right? That's how we serve our people, and we make them feel awesome. So we take all the places that we might have stored some of this data, right? Microsoft Excel, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, our cell phone, the neighborhood directory, the church directory, your old coworkers, your old classmates, the parents of your kids' friends or whatever, anywhere, any data that you can collect of people that have meaningful relationships with you, you put in one place. That's what command is, right? Or that's what command can do. And you use the technology to create efficiencies in your life. Now, one thing I do want to just say quickly about command is the technology is not a replacement for the individual touch. Don't just like meet somebody in an open house and stick them on a smart plan that doesn't require like a phone call for 3 months and expect them to be your buyer, right? When somebody walks into the open house, you got to absolutely blow them away every single day until they sign papers saying they want to work with you. Otherwise, they're going to go work with the other person that's more assertive than you. Does that make sense? So don't just stick them on a smart plan and forget about it and think you're working. Smart plans are helpful, but they don't solve all. They only complement all the other activities: calling, visiting, texting, emailing, video texting, interacting with them on Facebook, that kind of stuff. Okay, so we collect all those people, and remember, I first want to talk about the Met local group. So these are people in Metro Atlanta that you have a relationship with. Now, that's the core of the database. The rest of the database would be people in your farm that you have not made contact with, let's say. Let's say you want to farm Martin's Landing, but the person that lives in that house you don't know yet. So they could be in your database, but they should be noted as a non-met, right? Or as Keller Williams might call it, a lead. Once you have a two-way back and forth, that person becomes a met or becomes a what KW would call a contact. Okay, it's a little different than what I would call a contact for our tracking purposes, but just follow me on that. So now you got a bunch of Mets. Everyone that's a not Met or somebody that lives outside of our Metro Atlanta area. So let's say you came from Boston and you got a bunch of people in your database from Boston, just tag them out of area, right? Because they need a different frequency of message and a different type of message. They don't care what's going on in Alpharetta, Georgia, right? They want to know what's going on in their world. Does that make sense? So local Mets, the goal is to have 16 times the number of sales that you want to have each year. That should be the size of your local Met database as soon as humanly possible. If you don't have that number, that's your job. You're no longer a realtor, you are a people meter. Go meet people. That's simple. Okay. Now, if you have a 36 touch plan in place, right, which is 36 interactions or 36 touches throughout the year. There's a bunch of videos and a bunch of context on how that's split up. It's in the Google Drive, it's in the YouTube, and you can ask me specifically later on. There's Andy and Leslie do a class on it. Lots of content on that. If you do a 36 touch to those people in your database, you should have the number of closings that you want to have based on the 16-to-1 ratio. Now, as you are working your database and touching them in a number of different, telephone, email, social media, sending out a mailer, writing a handwritten note, that kind of stuff, you're going to identify people that want to transact business in the next 12 months. So it's not a perfect science, but if they vocalize a motivation to buy or sell or invest in the next 12 months, then they should be in what I would call a pipeline, which is basically a subset of your database of people that have a goal, a stated motivated goal to do business within the next 12 months. By the way, anybody that walks into your open house that doesn't identify themselves as a very happy neighbor, actually scratch that. Anybody that walks into an open house should go in your pipeline. They're telling you they have some goals, or at least if given some appropriate information, they could turn into a pipeline person very quickly. And I think they should be treated as such until they tell you otherwise, right? So somebody that's walking into the house to see the renovation of the kitchen of the house 3 doors down, they're curious. They may not be ready to move, but they're curious. And they're willing to go out into the public to be curious rather than just looking at it online. Does that make sense? So they're hoping to interact with a professional that can give them the information they need. So you should give it to them. Okay. Ideally, we want to have a running list of 3 times the number of units that we want to have annually in our pipeline. Reason why we say 3 is because everyone that says they're going to transact business is not going to transact business. And they're definitely not going to do it in the amount of time they originally said they would. Okay. And therefore, oh, by the way, and some people are going to say, hey, I want to do it in 2 months, and they'll end up doing it 2 years from now. Or they'll want to do it in 2 months and then they split up or whatever, and now they're ready to do it. So you got to, it's a living document, right? People are going to have delays. They're going to have move forward. They're going to lose their job. They're going to get a job. They're going to need to transfer. They're going to have a kid. Somebody's going to die. They're going to get married. They're going to have a divorce. You just got to keep in touch with all these people, because at any of those moments, boom, there's a transaction waiting to happen. You see what I'm saying? So when you're in these conversations with your database, you should be listening very clearly to signs of major life changes, right? Which are some of the things I just mentioned, right? Kids going off to school, kids coming back from school, something to do with like an elderly parent. I mean, it could be anything. Okay, so that's the general theory. We should always have a database of 16 times the number of units we want to sell. We should always have a pipeline of 3 times the units, the annual units that we have a desire to sell. Okay, and both need to be fed every single day. Both need to be stared at every single day, right? It's people being added to the database every day because that is basically your job, to lead generate. And there's people possibly coming out of your database, right? Or there's people that maybe you had a couple in your database and they split. Now you got 2 people in your database, right? Somebody says, hey, I'm actually, my landlord wants to sell the house and I need to buy something. Great. See what I'm saying? So they can come out of nowhere. You just got to be in touch with your database. And by the way, I've said this 100 times, but you're not good enough to help somebody sell a house they don't want to sell. Or you're not good enough to help somebody buy a house they don't want to buy. Nobody is, right? I can't convince a buyer to buy a home they don't want to buy. So my job, that's not my job. My job is to give them the information and let them make a choice. So if they allow me to help them get the information, then they can decide for themselves whether it makes sense. Y'all see that? So in some ways, we're not salespeople, we're information sharers. Does that make sense? So if you're worried about making a call because you don't want to sound salesy, then flip it and say, hey, what can I do for this person today? Or what can I share with this person today that might help them learn something or benefit in some way, right? How can I make this person smile today? How can I make this person laugh today? Stop thinking about yourself. Go out there and help some other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today because this morning I listened to the pivot shift call.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was about like, we need to get back to sharing important data with our clients.
Yeah.
Being the economist of choice and not just about keeping in touch. They kept talking about like the time change coming up. Well, people, if they want to know the time change, they're going to look at their clock. They're not going to turn to their realtor. Like you need to twist it more like, okay, look how much the market has changed. And we're changing the time, but look what the market's done in the past 6 months, or, something that's like data driven that we actually provide to them and not like recipes and seeds. They're like, that's fine if you want to do it, but make sure you're giving them the data because that's why they're coming to you. And they said like one thing you could do is every day do an equity analysis on 3 people that like just, looking it up and then call them and just say, hey, you know what? I was just thinking about you. You had such growth. I just did an equity analysis on your home. Do you have 5 minutes where we can jump on a Zoom call? And they're like, not like, hey, did you turn your clock back?
Right. I mean,
like, what? That's a good point. Like, it's not just, touching getting in touch with people, but like having something to talk to them about. And an equity analysis is good enough to talk to anybody about right now.
Well, I've got a couple observations from what you just said. The first is, although sending somebody a turn back the clock notice is not effective, pretty much, it is a touch and it's better than nothing.
Well,
Right.
said, you said those things, but make sure you're doing these other things. Don't just rely on doing
Exactly.
those things.
Right. If you're going to do something,
you know,
if
the recipes and clock changes, then you're not going to ever move the needle. Like you can do that, but do the other things too.
Exactly. Now, I just want to point out two things you said, Ryan, just to make sure this is recognized. Nobody says the phrase economist of choice if they have not read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent or they're not learning from KW. So I just want to recognize the fact that you are learning based and you are thinking about the business exactly the way you need to be thinking about the business. Exactly. Right. I think that is worth I think that is worth noting. You also said what is it? You said one more thing that I think was super important to hear. They've got to have the data. That's our job. That's our job. So I'll think of it in 2 seconds and I'll recognize you for that. Anyone else have any thoughts on what we've spoken about today?
I guess I'll chime in. I kind of like what Ryan said too. I met a guy not this past weekend, the weekend before, at an open house. He's going through a divorce. It was in Smyrna though, and I'm not normally in Smyrna. And that kind of was part of the conversation that we had. He did not answer me when I followed up last week, but he did answer the email that I sent yesterday. He answered it kind of late, so I'm going to answer him this morning. But his concern is that I'm not normally in Smyrna. But my plan is to just provide him the value that I would any other neighborhood that I would work in, because I have data, and that I need to let that speak for itself.
That's correct. And you can even ask a little bit more pointedly with him and say, you know, if you were sitting in front of the Smyrna expert right now, what would you ask them? Right? Or what would you expect? What kind of information would you expect the Smyrna expert to know? Right? I mean, who knows what they want? Who knows what they want?
And he made it a point to say him and his wife are looking for very different things in their future. You know, but that's why I'm here. You know, like I cater to you, not to what she wants. What do you want?
Well, you might end up having two clients one at some point in the future, but I definitely want to make sure. That's a tough one. That is a tough one because you got a lot of different dynamics at play. You got the dynamic between the husband and wife who can't agree on anything. Then the one that you may have had first contact with the husband. So if you talk to the husband and make the wife feel ignored or unheard, that's a whole different set of complications. You got a tall task ahead of you. Welcome to real estate, right?
Yeah, I'm willing to, take the challenge on this one. I had a really great conversation with Greta about working with divorced couples.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to see what happens.
Ryan, I know I remembered what I was going to say. You used the phrase equity analysis. That is a really, really great phrase, right? Because that's not, you want to see what your home is worth. You want to see what your home is worth is what you might say over drinks at a bar after midnight, right? An equity analysis is what a business owner studies so they can help their clients. Y'all see the difference? That makes sense.
I just sent out a neighborhood I was farming. I just sent out an equity analysis thing to everyone in the neighborhood. I just sent them out this week. So we'll see if I get any
That is awesome. Oh my gosh. I love this. Guys,
it's like 48 homes. So I was like, okay, it's manageable. But like I went through every single one because you can get it all in Remind and look at it. And so I gave every single house, like, do you know that? Because no house is sold in this neighborhood in a couple years. So I'm like, they may have no idea how much their homes are worth. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
And many people, this is their largest chunk of their net worth, right? And if they knew what it was worth, they might be able to be more strategic with their equity. Maybe they refinance, or maybe they sell it, or, there's a lot of different things. But if they
Well,
don't have that information,
I said, you got all this equity. Maybe you could remodel, you could buy a vacation home, you
Yep.
could invest it, you could, refinance, whatever you want to do. But like just kind of giving them some suggestions, like you've got $386,000 in equity. What are you going to do with it?
yeah. And the big thing is we are a resource, oftentimes we're a resource for the next level expert, if you will. So you initiate the conversation, then you identify where they stand financially in a couple different places, and then they go talk to their estate planner, and they go talk to their tax attorney, and they go talk to their real estate lawyer, and they go talk to their financial planner, and the next thing you know, they're coming into all these other high level professionals and saying, oh my gosh, my realtor just gave me an equity analysis, and they're sitting across the table saying, wait a second, I don't think I've ever gotten a referral from a realtor that is doing an equity analysis. And they're like, I think I want to know who this realtor is. Can you share that information with me? Next thing you know, you're having morning coffees with this estate guy and that estate guy and that financial planner and that CPA, who all have, likely high net worth individual clients. I mean, that can all happen in like a week. It goes back to the quote we said a few days ago, which is you're either making things happen or you're waiting for things to happen. And I just want to recognize both Ryan and Melissa today. You're making things happen. This is exactly what you should be doing.
Well, I'm going to try
Right.
to do the equity thing with like people that I know, like people in my database. It'll be a little different because I have to go neighborhood by neighborhood. Everyone's in different places, but that one was
Yeah.
just one specific neighborhood. But I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like, give them something that's different than anyone else, and something you can actually use. And if they're not ready to buy, or sell, then do one of these other things. And thank you later.
Exactly. They'll be ready at some point. Like, that's the
Right.
beautiful thing is everybody that you see today, when you go out doing whatever you're going to do today, every single person you see has to live somewhere. So where are they going to live? And if you knew more about where they lived and how that fits into their whole, kind of world, personally, socially, financially, etc., then you could probably offer some advice that might put them in a better place, right? All right, just one more quick note on databases and pipelines before we call it a morning. So first of all, as you know, I've always recommended a visual pipeline, right? So if, let's say, Ashley wants to sell 12 homes next year, then 3 times 12 is 36. You should have a pipeline of 36 people. So if you were to put that on a poster board or a cork board or a dry erase board or something like that, and you wrote down all the people currently in your pipeline, and let's say there were 6, well, you got some work to do, right? If you know of 6 people that are going to transact in the next 12 months, and you have a goal to sell 12, well, you got to add some more people to that list. So that becomes the priority. If you focus on that, the appropriate number of contacts will happen. In fact, you'll probably triple it, right? You'll be adding plenty of people to your database. You'll be having a lot of meetings, learning about people's situations, right? As a result, you'll be doing a lot of research and a lot of, studying and a lot of metric tracking and all this kind of stuff. Before you know it, you're going to wake up and say, damn, all 36 of these people would be lucky to have me as a real estate agent. You see what I'm saying? Now you got to look at it every day, right? That's why, a lot of times agents are, they don't need re-acknowledgement that they're not on track, right? And so therefore, they're probably not going to go dig through Google Docs to like check some, unupdated pipeline to verify whether they're in good shape or not. You want it to be impossible to avoid your current state of your data or your pipeline, right? So if you got a poster board and 7 names are on it, you got some work to do. You want to see that every single day when you walk in the door, right? And that'll prove to you that, hey, we no more making smart plans right now. We need to put some people in the pipeline. Make sense? And of course, the database, there's a great strategy for communicating with the database. And this is, part of the a potential 36 touch is the DTD2, right? So that is calling people in your database with the last name, starting with 2 different letters each. Hey, 2 different letters each week. And that makes certain that you touch everyone each quarter, or you attempt to touch everyone each quarter. psychologically, there's something called call reluctance. And if you're powerful enough to overcome call reluctance, it's kind of like saying, let's say today was the G week. Okay, so Melissa Guy, her last name starts with a G. But Melissa Guy and I, you know, last time we saw each other, like it was a little awkward, blah, blah, blah. Like my, you know, maybe something was a little strange, I don't know. And get in my head that she doesn't want to hear from me. Okay, this is done to avoid call reluctance. It says, hey, her name starts with G, I'm calling her today, period. Right? And if you can get that powerful, then you will verify that you'll speak to every single person in your database every quarter. And it's your job to either get them by email, social, in person, at church, over the phone, text, video text, LinkedIn, whatever you got to do, that's your commitment. You touch everyone in the database every quarter. Right. So just a reminder, I'm trying to come up with the best system of finalizing the system page and sharing it with everybody and making sure that it stays, there's a master copy, and then each person has their own individual copy. So I'm not withholding anything from you. I'm trying to make it as good as possible. If you got some questions or you want to see it and give me some feedback on it, I'd be more than happy to you know, accept your thoughts and, you know, see how I can make it better for each and every one of you. So keep up the good work. I'm headed to Bold now, and I'll teach you some things that I learned a little bit later. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bill. Bye.
Bye.